You know, it's funny how we can sometimes treat certain things as just, well, part of life. Like popping in for a quick laser hair removal session seems so routine, doesn't it? Just another way to, handle personal grooming.
Absolutely. It's become
Mm.
so normalized, hasn't it? Almost like getting a haircut for some people. But it's really important to remember that even though it's common, it's still a procedure.
Mhm.
And procedures have the potential for things to go wrong.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've got this legal consultation report that really throws a spanner in the works of that routine idea. It details the experience of someone we're calling Kay, who went for laser hair removal in New South Wales, Australia, and suffered, well, shockingly severe burns.
Yeah, this case really highlights a critical point that often gets overlooked, I think. These cosmetic treatments aren't without risk, and the clinics providing them, they have significant responsibilities towards their client's safety. It's more than just paying for a service. There's a duty of care involved.
Precisely. So, our goal in this deep dive is really to unpack case story, understand the key legal principles that come into play in situations like this, and ultimately empower you, our listeners, with knowledge out your rights if you ever find yourself in a similar unfortunate predicament. This isn't about, fear mongering, but about being informed consumers in the world of cosmetic services.
And understanding that legal framework can be so crucial. It's not something most people think about until something does go wrong, right?
Yeah.
But being aware of it beforehand can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, so let's get down to what actually happened. The report states that Kay was having a pretty standard laser hair removal procedure at a beauty clinic. A very common scenario, something we hear about all the time.
Exactly. Thousands of these procedures happened every single day, probably without any incident at all.
But in Kay's case, the outcome was, well, far from typical. They sustained really severe burns. The report specifically mentions fourth-degree ones. I mean, when you hear that term, it really makes you stop and think about the intensity of the injury.
Oh, absolutely. Fourth-degree burns are incredibly serious. We're talking damage not just to the skin layers, but also underlying tissues, potentially muscle, even bone. It's the kind of injury that strongly suggests a significant failure in the safety protocols of the procedure.
Right. And the initial assessment seems to point to a couple of potential causes. Either the laser equipment wasn't operated correctly, or maybe the clinic staff didn't follow the necessary safety protocols. It strongly suggests a lapse in proper care, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, when you have burns of that magnitude from a cosmetic procedure, it very, very strongly indicates a deviation from the expected standards. Proper training, correct equipment calibration, adherence to safety guidelines, these things are paramount in these treatments. It's kind of fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
How a seemingly simple procedure relies so heavily on these technical and procedural bits being executed flawlessly.
hmm The report notes that Kay immediately sought legal advice from talk lawyers, and their initial assessment was quite strong, indicating a high likelihood of negligence on the part of the practitioner. That must have been a significant moment for Kay, realizing there might actually be grounds for legal action.
Oh, it would be. That initial legal opinion provides validation, I suppose, and a direction forward for someone who has likely experienced a pretty traumatic event. It sort of signals that their experience wasn't just an unfortunate accident, but potentially the result of someone else's error, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's delve into the legal side of things, focusing on New South Wales where this happened. The report mentions the Civil Liability Act 2002. What are the core legal principles at play in a case like Kay's?
Well, one of the foundational principles, as you mentioned earlier, is the duty of care. In New South Wales, businesses providing services, and that includes beauty clinics, have a legal responsibility. They have to take reasonable care to avoid causing foreseeable harm to their clients. It's all about ensuring a safe environment and competent service delivery.
So it's not just about providing the beauty treatment itself, it's about providing it safely. It's almost like saying, look, we're offering this service and we promise we'll take all reasonable steps to make sure you're not harmed in the process.
That's a really good way to put it, yes. And when that duty of care is breached, well, that's where the legal issues really start. A breach of duty in Kay's situation could stem from several things. Just think about it. Were the laser settings right for Kay's skin type? That's a big one. Was the person operating the laser properly trained and certified? Were all of the necessary safety precautions actually in place and followed? If any of those were lacking, that could constitute a breach.
Right. Okay. So it's not enough for the injury just to happen. It's about looking at whether the clinic or the practitioner failed in their responsibility somehow, failed in a way that led to the injury. Then there's this concept of causation. It sounds straightforward, the negligence caused the burns, but what are the nuances in proving that legally?
Well, while it might seem obvious to us legally, you need to establish a direct causal link, a clear line between the breach of duty and the harm suffered. So in Kate's case, it needs to be demonstrated that, but for the clinic's negligence, let's say, using the wrong laser intensity or technique, the severe burns would not have occurred. This sometimes involves bringing in expert medical testimony to really connect the specific actions or lack of action to the resulting injury. What's interesting here, too, is that even if there might have been other contributing factors, if the clinic's negligence was a significant cause, they can still be held liable.
Okay, so showing that clear line from their mistake to the injury. And finally, damage.
Hmm.
We know Case suffered these terrible burns, but what else does damage cover in the eyes of the law?
Right. The physical injury is certainly the most immediate and visible damage, obviously. But legally, it extends beyond just that. It includes any pain and suffering Kay endured, both physically and mentally. That's huge. Also, any medical expenses incurred past, present, and even future projected costs. And crucially, any loss of income resulting from being unable to work because of the injuries and recovery. It's about compensating for the totality of the harm caused, the whole picture.
So it's not just the immediate treatment cost, but the long-term impact on their life, their well-being, including their ability to earn a living. The report also points out that there have been similar cases in NSW where victims have received significant compensation, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. That really underscores the seriousness with which these cases are viewed by the system.
It certainly does. It shows that the legal system recognizes the potential for really significant harm in these procedures and holds clinics accountable. What this precedent kind of suggests is that beauty clinics operating these sorts of devices, well, they're held to a standard of care that's maybe closer to medical practice than the average person might realize.
That's a really important point, that level of responsibility. Now, if someone finds themselves in Kay's situation and decides, okay, I need to pursue legal action, what's the typical roadmap they can expect?
Well, the process generally kicks off with that initial consultation, just
Yeah.
like Kay had. This lets a legal professional assess the merits of the case, see if there's something there, and they start gathering some preliminary evidence. The report suggests this initial phase can take maybe around 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, so fairly quick to get the ball rolling with an initial look. What comes next?
Following that, there's usually what's called a pre-litigation phase. This involves trying to negotiate a settlement directly with the beauty clinic or their insurer. Often, this means sending them a formal letter of demand, which outlines the allegations and basically says, we intend to pursue legal action if we can't reach a resolution. This part can take a bit longer, perhaps 4 to 6 weeks, as it involves communication, maybe some back and forth between the parties. The hope is often to avoid court, if possible.
Makes sense. Try and resolve it outside of court first, but if a settlement can't be reached, what happens then?
Right. If those negotiations fail, the next step is to commence formal litigation. That means filing a claim in court. This is usually the most protracted part of the process. It can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, sometimes even longer depending on how complex the case is, and the court's own schedule. It involves detailed legal filings, gathering more evidence, potentially expert reports, and maybe court hearings.
Wow, that's a significant time investment. It really highlights again the importance of having experienced legal counsel, doesn't it, to navigate all of those complexities. It's definitely not something someone should probably try to handle on their own while also recovering from serious injuries.
Oh, absolutely not. A lawyer specializing in personal injury claims will handle all the procedural stuff, they understand the legal nuances, and they advocate for the victim's rights throughout what can be a really challenging process.
The report also outlines the different types of compensation Kay or someone in a similar position might be entitled to. Can you break those categories down a bit more for us?
Sure. Firstly, there are what we call general damages. This is compensation for the intangible losses. Things like the actual pain and suffering endured, both physical and psychological.
Yeah.
Also, the impact the injuries have had and will continue to have on their overall quality of life and daily activities.
Okay, so this acknowledges the human cost, kind of beyond just the financial losses.
Exactly. Then you have special damages. These are for the more quantifiable financial losses directly related to the injury. This covers all the medical expenses, doctor visits, hospital stays, medications, physiotherapy, rehabilitation, you name it, as well as any lost income, both past earnings lost and potentially future lost earnings, if the injuries have prevented or will prevent the person from working.
The concrete financial costs that you can actually put a number on document. And there was a third category mentioned as well.
Yes, future economic loss. This specifically addresses situations where the injury has a long-term impact on the person's ability to earn income in the future. So if Kay's burns, for example, resulted in permanent scarring or limitations that affected their ability to do their job or maybe pursue their chosen career path, this category would aim to compensate for that future loss of earning capacity over their working life.
That makes a lot of sense, compensating for the long-term financial hit from the injury. The report also mentions no-win, no-fee legal arrangements. How do those work, and why can they be such a crucial factor for someone like Kay?
Right? A no-win, no-fee agreement essentially means that the client doesn't have to pay their lawyer's professional legal fees unless they're successful in winning their case and receiving compensation. This can be incredibly significant for someone who's already suffered financial losses due to their injuries, maybe lost income, facing big medical bills. It basically removes that upfront financial barrier to getting legal help and pursuing their claim. It shifts the risk, really, to the lawyer who only gets paid if they achieve a positive outcome for their client.
That could be a real lifeline for someone already dealing with so much. So, to kind of bring it all together, what's the most crucial thing you think our listeners should take away from Kay's experience?
I think Kay's case really brings home the fact that even these seemingly commonplace cosmetic procedures, they carry inherent risks. And the businesses offering them have a significant legal responsibility, a duty of care to make sure they are performed safely. When negligence happens, the consequences can be incredibly severe, and the legal system does provide avenues for seeking compensation for the harm caused.
Absolutely. And as the report highlights, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, the key is not to try and navigate the legal complexities on your own. Seeking expert legal advice and doing it as soon as possible is just crucial to understanding your rights and exploring your options.
Yeah, early legal advice can really make a difference to the outcome of a potential claim.
And for anyone listening who might want to learn more or maybe explore a similar situation they've encountered, the report does give the contact info for Talk Lawyers, the firm that did Kay's initial consultation. Their email is info@talklawyers.com.au. I'll repeat that, info@talklawyers.com.au.
Having access to those kinds of resources can be incredibly helpful for people.
You know, this whole deep dive into Kay's experience really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Beyond just the promised aesthetic results. What are the underlying safety protocols and, importantly, the legal responsibilities that support the services we often just take for granted? It really prompts the question. What specific inquiries should you be making before you undergo any such procedure? How can you truly understand the safety measures in place and your rights as a consumer, going beyond just asking about the price or, what you'll look like afterwards?
It's such a vital question to ask yourself, isn't it? Being proactive about your own safety and really understanding your rights is paramount in these situations.